Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're cutting through some of the noise around decentralized cloud computing.
Right.
Forget the usual names you hear, Amazon, Google, Microsoft. We're looking at a shift towards more open, community-powered networks.
Exactly.
And our focus today is the Akash network. We've got some really interesting material here to, unpack how it works and what makes it stand out.
hmm
We know you're here to get smart fast. So that's the plan. Understand the core of Akash without getting totally bogged down in technical jargon.
Sounds good.
So let's just jump right in. What is the Akash network, basically?
Okay. So at its heart, Akash Network is really an open marketplace. It's for buying and selling computing resources.
Okay, a marketplace.
Yeah, think of it like a direct way to connect people who need computing power with those who actually have some to spare. It's set up as a public utility,
Public utility.
meaning it's completely open source.
Yeah.
There's a really active community involved, always, contributing, checking the code. It's transparent.
So it's more like a peer-to-peer thing. You can get computing resources directly from others.
Precisely. Yeah. And it's not just an idea, it's a functioning network.
Yeah.
It's built to, well, democratize access to cloud infrastructure, make it more open.
Okay. Okay. So how does this marketplace actually function? Say I need some server power. How do I use Akash to get it?
Right. So it really centers around two main components,
Hmm.
the Akash Compute Marketplace and the Akash Container Platform.
Got it.
The marketplace is where you actually lease the resources.
Mm.
If you need computing power, you submit a request spelling out what you need.
Uh-huh.
Then cloud providers who are part of the Akash network can bid on your request.
They bid. Interesting.
Yeah, and what's really cool here is that everything, the requests, the bids, the final lease agreements, even the payments, it's all recorded transparently right on the Akash blockchain.
The blockchain. You mentioned it uses Tendermint and the Cosmos SDK. What's the practical upside of that for a user?
Well, think of it as a really strong, reliable foundation. Tendermint helps keep the network secure and ensures everyone agrees on the state of things, consensus.
Right.
And the Cosmos SDK is like a flexible toolkit for building these kinds of blockchain applications.
Yeah.
And the fuel, the currency for all this, is the Akash token, AKT.
AKT. Got it. So the marketplace is where you find the resources. Then how do you actually use them? Run your applications. That's the container platform part.
Exactly right. The container platform is where the deployment and management happens. And the key thing here, the real innovation with Akash, is its focus on containers.
Containers, you mean like Docker container?
Yes, exactly. Think of containers as these lightweight, sort of self-contained packages. They hold everything your application needs to run.
Okay.
This makes it super easy to move applications between different computers without worrying about compatibility. And that's crucial because it means you can run almost any cloud-native application on Akash.
Any cloud native app.
Wow. Pretty much. And to manage all these containers, Akash uses Kubernetes.
Kubernetes. Familiar territory for many.
Right. Kubernetes acts like an automated manager, making sure your apps are running smoothly, scaling them up if needed, even handling failures automatically.
Okay, so it's smartly leveraging these widely used technologies. Now, walk me through it. If I'm a user, I want to deploy an app on Akash. What are the basic steps?
It's actually designed to be pretty straightforward. You start by defining what your application needs.
Oh.
You specify the Docker image you want, how much CPU, memory, storage it needs, all inside a simple file called deploy.yaml. Think of it like a blueprint.
A deploy.yaml file. Okay, makes sense. So I describe my needs there. Then what?
Then you also set the price you're willing to pay for those resources. You submit this request to the Akash network.
Uh-huh.
Providers on the marketplace see it and can send you bids based on their capacity and your price point.
Mm-hmm.
You'll often see bids come in pretty quickly.
And I just pick the best bid?
You look at the bids, yeah. Typically, you'd choose the one offering the best value, often the lowest price that meets all your needs. Once you accept a bid, boom, your application gets deployed automatically.
Automatically?
Yeah. And the really powerful part, you don't have to set up or manage any servers yourself. Akash handles that orchestration. Plus, if your needs change, scaling up or down is just a matter of adjusting your deployment specs.
That definitely sounds simpler than, wrestling with traditional cloud consoles sometimes. And you can interact with Akash in different ways.
Yes, you've got options. There's a command line tool great for control, automation, scripting,
Right.
or there's a web app, which gives you a more visual, perhaps more user-friendly interface for some.
Okay. Now, one of the biggest claims I've seen, and frankly, one of the most eye-catching, is the cost saving. The documentation throws out a pretty bold number.
It does, yeah. They estimate that running applications on Akash can cost around, get this, 1/3 of what you typically pay with the big guys, AWS, GCP, Azure.
1/3, seriously,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
that's huge.
It's a massive potential saving. I mean, think about it for a startup. Maybe bootstrapping, cutting cloud cost by 2/3. That could be a make or break difference.
No kidding, 1/3. Is there a way to actually verify that? See law of comparisons?
Absolutely. Akash actually provides a live price comparison tool on their site.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so you can see in real time how their marketplace prices stack up against the traditional providers. That transparency is really part of their whole open marketplace philosophy.
Okay, the picture's getting clearer, but let's really dig into the core differences. What makes Akash fundamentally different from, say, AWS or Google Cloud? Key differentiators.
Well, the absolute most fundamental difference is that it's decentralized. That's the core.
Right.
Instead of relying on these huge proprietary data center empires run by a few giant companies.
The big three.
Exactly. Akash is a network of many independent cloud providers. This naturally creates an open, competitive marketplace. It's not just a technical detail. It's a shift in control, giving you more choice.
You mentioned an analogy earlier, Airbnb for server hosting. Tell me more about why that fits.
Sure. Think about how Airbnb changed travel. Before, you mostly had big hotel chains.
Right? Limited options sometimes.
Yeah. Then Airbnb opened up access to tons of individual hosts offering all sorts of places, different prices, different amenities, right? Akash is kind of similar for computing. You control the price you want to pay, and you can choose providers based on specific features or attributes they offer. That level of choice and customization, that's very different from the more standardized cloud offerings.
That analogy really works. It clicks. And the docs mention a command line tool for deploying straight from the terminal. Why is that highlighted? Why is it a big deal?
For developers, it's often a big deal for efficiency. It allows for a really smooth workflow.
How so?
You can manage everything, leasing resources, deploying the app right from your command line. This fits really well into existing developer habits, automation scripts. It just saves time and clicks.
Makes sense. And Akash talks about using underutilized resources.
Yeah.
Where are these resources actually coming from?
Well, globally, there's just a massive amount of computing power sitting idle in data centers. Big ones, small ones.
Is that unused?
A lot of it, yeah.
Yeah.
At any given time, Akash aims to tap into this huge pool of underused capacity and make it available. This efficiency boost is a key reason they can offer those lower prices.
Right.
And the really compelling part is, if you already have an application running in a container on AWS or somewhere else, there's a very high chance you can run that exact same container on Akash, just, cheaper.
Potentially much cheaper. Okay, so that's versus the traditional clouds. What about other decentralized platforms? There are a few popping up. What makes Akash different there?
That's a really important question. A key difference is that many other decentralized platforms, they often make you rewrite your application.
Rewrite it.
Using their own specific, often proprietary programming language or framework built just for their network.
Ah, okay. That sounds like a barrier.
It could be a huge one. Akash, because it's built around standard containers, lets you run pretty much any cloud-native app without that massive rewrite.
So no vendor lock-in.
Exactly. No vendor lock-in.
Yeah.
You're not stuck in one ecosystem. You can move more easily if you need to. Huge flexibility advantage.
Definitely.
And another point, security and performance. When you deploy your actual application files, the sensitive stuff, they aren't sent over the public blockchain.
Oh, where do they go?
They use a private peer-to-peer network separate from the blockchain for that transfer. And they use something called MTLS, mutual TLS, for secure off-chain asset transfer. It's designed for mission-critical stuff.
Interesting. So harnessing decentralization, but keeping practical security and performance in mind for real applications. Okay, let's talk about this SDL stack definition language. Sounds important. What is it?
Yeah, SDL is fundamental. Think of it as the language you use to tell the Akash network what you need. It's declarative, which means you describe the state you want, what services to run, data center preferences maybe, CPU, memory, storage needs, and the max price you'll pay.
And this all goes in that deploy.yaml file we talked about.
Exactly. That file, often called the manifest, is written using SDL.
And it's human-friendly, compatible with YAML. Why is that helpful?
Well, YAML itself is pretty readable, but crucially, Docker Compose files, Many developers already use those to define multi-container apps.
Right, also YAML-based.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So SDL feels familiar. It builds on concepts developers likely already know, lowering the learning curve. It's basically the standard form for requesting resources.
Got it. So you define everything there, including networking.
Correct. How your application connects externally, how its different parts talk to each other, that's all configured in the SDL file too. By default, things are isolated for security, but you can change that if your app needs it.
And updates. If my app is running and I need to change something, new version maybe, do I start over?
No, you don't have to start from scratch. You can update existing deployments,
Okay.
but there's a catch. Not everything in the SDL can be changed on the fly. You can usually update the Docker image, commands, arguments, environment variables.
The application specifics?
Right. But the core resource allocation CPU, memory, storage, and the placement criteria, where it runs, those are generally fixed once deployed. You'd need a new deployment to change those.
That makes sense, for stability. Okay, this has been really insightful for someone listening now thinking, okay, this sounds interesting, I want to learn more, maybe try it. Where should they go?
The best starting point is definitely Akash's official deployment guides.
On their website.
Yep. They walk you through deploying your first app, step by step. Really clear. And then, if you want to go deeper, the community has created a ton of advanced guides.
For what kinds of things?
Things like running your own node on the network, becoming a validator, or even becoming a cloud provider yourself. Plus, guides for deploying specific popular apps on Akash. Lots of resources out there.
Fantastic. Sounds like there's a good path for learning, whatever your level. So, all right, let's try to wrap this up. Key takeaways. What should we really remember about Akash Network?
I'd say first, it's a decentralized alternative. Second, significantly more cost-effective, potentially that one-third figure compared to traditional clouds.
Right.
Third, the open marketplace model drives competition and transparency. Fourth, its flexibility run almost any containerized app, no vendor lock-in. And fifth, tools like SDL make it quite accessible.
So it's not just about being cheaper, it's a fundamentally different approach.
Exactly. It could really lower the barrier for deploying applications and maybe, just maybe, shake up the established cloud order a bit.
Yeah, it really makes you wonder, doesn't it? Could these decentralized cloud networks like Akash genuinely be the next big step for internet infrastructure, for how we deploy apps?
It's a powerful idea.
And thinking about all that unused computing power globally, what happens when platforms like Akash make it easily accessible to anyone with an idea? The implications are pretty vast, definitely something to mull over.
For sure.
Well, if this deep dive got you thinking, definitely check out those guides and resources we mentioned. It's a really fascinating space to watch.
Absolutely.
Thanks for walking us through all that today.
My pleasure.